tell me when? You're all set? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have 3 meetings tonight. We have 2 public meetings and then are on to our normal council meeting. Our first meeting this evening is the special council meeting 35-20, public hearing. I'll call this meeting to order. I will go through a roll call. When I call your name, just let us know that you're here. Councillor Beauregard?
Here.
Councillor Desmarais?
Here.
Councillor Wells?
Here.
Councillor Danch?
Here.
Councillor Bagu?
Here.
Councillor Bodner?
Here.
Councillor Clayliff?
Here.
And Councillor Bruno will be joining us late. He is at a airport commission meeting, and when he comes, we'll let everybody know that he's signed in. If I can have Councillors Bagu and Bodner move to confirm the agenda. Any questions on tonight's first public meeting agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor raise your hand. That is carried. With regards to this public meeting, are there any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll now have a public hearing under the Planning Act, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report number 2020-186. Subject, public meeting report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment at 168 and 176 Elm Street, file D14-02-20. Mr. Schultz, do you want to take it away, please?
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for having me here. The purpose of this meeting is pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application submitted by the agent Stephen Rivers on behalf of the owner Hometown Properties Incorporated for the lands legally known as lots 121 to 123 on Plan 12 and part of lots 368 and 369 on Plan 16 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 168 and 176 Elm Street. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning from I institutional zone to R456, which is a special provision of the R4 fourth density residential zone that will allow for a hall, apartment building, and personal service business while recognizing the existing location of the building and allowing for a reduction in lot area per unit, minimum floor area for a unit, and parking. These changes are being sought to permit the conversion from an institutional building into a 22-unit apartment building with a hall and office space on the property. Notice of the public meeting was administered in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended and Section 5 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. The notice of public meeting was mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property on November 24th. A sign was also posted on the property on November 24th. Notice was also posted on the city's website through the regular council agenda. As of the date of this meeting, staff has received the following correspondence from members of the public. Jennifer Brooks of 115 Kent Street. Jennifer would like to be notified of any decisions related to this application, and Jennifer has concerns related to the parking and green space for the apartment building. Patricia and Julius Premi at 171 Alexandra Street. Patricia and Julius are in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The following agency has also provided comments to us. The Regional Municipality of Niagara. The full comment has been will be included in the recommendation report that planning staff brings forward at a future date. However, in their conclusion, the regional municipality states that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to provincial and regional plans from their regional perspective. Regional staff has no objection to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The procedure to be followed this evening will be to present Department of Planning and Development Report 2020-186, hear any comments from the applicant, receive questions of clarification from council to the applicant or planning staff, and announce the requirements under the Planning Act for written notice of passage of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. At this time, I would like to present Planning and Development Public Hearing Report 2020-186. And I'm going to try to share my screen, so just bear with me for a second here, please. Oh, Can everyone see that? Can everyone see that? Yeah.
I can.
Yep, we can see it, David.
I'm just wondering why it's not going full screen. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Perfect. There you are.
Sorry about that. Okay. The property is located at 168 and 176 Elm Street, as I mentioned. It's on the southeast corner of Elm and Charlotte Street. The property is currently an institutional building, which, according to staff's knowledge, has been vacant for a few years. The City of Port Colborne official plan designates the subject property as urban residential. The land uses in the urban residential designation include residential, neighborhood commercial, and community facilities and institutional uses. As part of this application, the official plan is not proposed to be changed. The City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/3018 zones the property as institutional and fourth density residential, R4. You can see the in that red box there. The institutional zone permits public apartment buildings, community gardens, cultural facilities, cemeteries, daycares, accessory dwelling units, food vehicles, long-term care facilities, places of assembly and banquet halls, place of worship, public uses, social service facility, and uses, structures, and buildings accessory thereto. While the R4 zone permits detached, semi-detached, triplex, fourplex, block and street townhouse apartment buildings, public apartment buildings, and uses, structures, and buildings accessory thereto. As I mentioned, the purpose is to rezone the property to R456, which is a special provision of the fourth density residential zone. The R456 zone will permit the apartment building, a hall, and personal service business on the property. The existing location of the building will also be recognized through this application, as well as a reduction in lot area per unit, minimum floor area per unit, and parking. At this time, Your Worship, I'd like to invite the applicant to provide any comments, please.
Okay, Mr. Schultz, go ahead.
Charlotte, could you bring in Mr. Rivers, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Stephen Rivers here. I hope you can hear me.
Good evening, Stephen. Yes, we can.
With any luck, you can't see me. It's not a pretty sight as usual. Briefly, the proposal that has been put before you is an innovative reuse of an existing underutilized building. A number of studies and analysis have been done. Certainly, we've initially looked at the environmental site assessment on the property, as is required by the provincial government and in the region and the town and the city. There are no contamination on the property, so it's a clear site to move ahead as a primarily residential use. The development will move ahead really in three phases. The first phase would be for 4 units, primarily the section of the old church along the railway tracks. The next phase would be for an additional 5 units, which would be the most southerly part of the property. And then in time, phase 3 would add an additional 12 units to complete the development proposal. And at that time, the existing structure on 168 Elm Street would be demolished and reused for parking. The intent is primarily a residential development with some the home occupation or the office for Mr. Smith, the owner, and his real estate business would run out of one of the units as well. By and large, that's the development in a nutshell. We've looked at as much as possible trying to retain as much of the green space as is possible on the existing site. I don't know if David could bring up the proposed conceptual site plan, but certainly what you see there now, the green space along Elm Street would stay, and the courtyard along Charlotte Street would stay. So we've tried very much to maintain the look and feel of the building and how it fits in with the community as it obviously does now. There are issues potentially with the railway, but they can be dealt with at site plan. I hope that explains it for you. Look forward to any questions you have.
Okay, David?
Thank you. At this time, Your Worship, are there any questions of clarification for myself or the applicant from council?
Councilors, if you have any questions, raise your hand. I do have to scroll on my computer because of the presentation. So, actually, I don't see Councilor Borgard or Clayliff asking a question, or Demaray, Wells, Councilor Danch.
Thanks, Mayor Steele. Just wondered, like Steve, you said phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Any idea on timeline here on this project?
Mr. Rivers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the elf. Went right over his head. The first phase is intended to start almost immediately. Mr. Smith has applied for grants and from the city as part of the downtown redevelopment incentives, and he's looking to do phase 1 almost immediately. I would think phase 2 would follow very closely after that. I would say we're probably looking in the neighborhood of this year, if you can, well, probably early next year for phase 1 and before the end of 2021 for phase 2.
Okay, Councilor Danch?
Yeah, fine with me. Thank you so much.
Okay, Councilor Borgard?
Thank you, Your Worship. How many parking spaces will there be?
There are 22 units. I believe we have 22, almost a little short of one space per unit, but I think it's pretty close to one space per unit.
Stephen, if you don't mind, in your report, it noted that there were 23 spaces once it's all said and done.
Thanks, David.
Once all phases are complete.
Thanks for looking after me.
Councilor Borgard?
Thank you, Your Worship. So when so there's supposed to be a hall as well, correct? So there would be 22 spaces. What happens if the hall is occupied at the same time? Like, if the hall is occupied, where are they supposed to park?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. By the time phase 3 is developed, the hall will no longer be there. The hall is being redeveloped as part of phase 3.
That's all. Thanks.
Okay. And just a clarification, Stephen, the home to the south that just recently sold has been purchased by Mr. Smith, that's correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
And that's the one that will be demolished and parking will be put on that vacant lot then?
That's correct.
Okay, just for clarification for council. I don't think I see any further questions. Seeing none. David, back to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to read my cautionary statements regarding the written notice of passage. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed by council, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the city of Port Colborne Council to the local planning appeal tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed by council, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there is reasonable grounds to do so. To any interested members of the public, as you can see on the screen here, I hope it's not blocked by, let me just see. Hopefully not, it's not blocked. If you would like to receive any future notices regarding this application, please contact me by email at planner@portcolborne.ca or by phone at 905-835-2901 extension 202, or also the city clerk at cityclerk@portcolborne.ca. I have one final message to state. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only the persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of adoption and passing of zoning bylaw amendment will be given notice. This concludes the public hearing under the Planning Act. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment and recommendation report will return to council at a later date. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I will adjourn this public meeting at this time. We move to our second public meeting, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report number 2020-187, subject public meeting report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment at 599 Main Street West, file D14-06-20. Mr. Schultz, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, the purpose of this meeting is pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application submitted by the agent Stephen Rivers on behalf of the owner 2493207 Ontario Inc. for the lands legally known as part of Lot 31, Concession 2 in the former township of Humberstone, now in the city of Port Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 599 Main Street West. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning on a portion of the property, which is phase 2 on the approved site plan and part 3 on the consent application survey sketch. And it proposes to change it from highway commercial or the AC zone to HC 57, which is a special provision of the HC zone that recognizes the lot frontage and front yard requirements to the zoning bylaw to satisfy a condition of a consent application under application B07-20-PC. Notice of the public meeting was administered in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended and Section 5 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. Notice of the public meeting was also mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property on the November 24th, and a sign was posted on the property on November 24th. Notice was also posted on the city's website through the regular council agenda. As of the date of this meeting, staff has received the following correspondence from members of the public. Comment from Lisa St. Amand of Big Incorporated. Lisa would like to be notified of any decisions related to this application and would like to reserve the right to appeal any future decision if necessary. Lisa requests that the ongoing proceedings between the property owner at 599 Main Street West and adjacent landowners and businesses should be addressed prior to any further excavation on the property, and requests that a stop work order on heavy excavation equipment be included in any approvals. The full extent of Lisa's comment has been circulated to council through the delegation package. We also received a comment from the Niagara region, who concluded that they have no provincial or regional interest with the zoning bylaw amendment and therefore have no objection. The procedure to be followed this evening will be to present Department of Planning and Development Report 2020-187, hear any comments from the applicant, receive questions of clarification from council to the applicant or planning staff, and announce the requirements under the Planning Act for written notice of passage of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. At this time, I would like to present Planning and Development Public Hearing Report 2020-187. I'm going to try to share my screen again. Better this time. Everyone can see that, I hope.
Yeah, we're all set, David.
Perfect. Okay. So the property is located at 599 Main Street West, which is on the north side of Main Street. Located currently on the property, the aerial image is vacant, but currently there's a gas station, convenience store, car wash, and 2 restaurants on the property. The property obtained site plan approval in 2018 for the buildings that are currently on the property. That would be phase 1 of that development. And a future strip mall and other commercial buildings were approved in phase 2, which have yet to be developed. It is noted that this application does not affect the approved site plan. It simply recognizes the lot frontage requirements related to a recent consent application under B07-20-PC. The City of Port Colborne's official plan designates the subject property as highway commercial. Land uses in the highway commercial zone include, but are not limited to, hotels and motels, automobile sales and service establishments, places of amusement or recreation, restaurants with takeout and or drive-through facilities, accessory uses, including a residence for a caretaker. For lands having frontage on Main Street East between Welland Canal and Elizabeth Street, a mix of uses, including both commercial and residential uses, are permitted in accordance with the appropriate policies. The official plan designation is not proposed to be changed as a result of this application. The subject parcel is zoned highway commercial. The highway commercial zone permits an animal care establishment, brew pub, car wash, convenience store, daycare, drive-through facility, accessory dwellings, food vehicles, hotels, motor vehicle repair garage, motor vehicle sales and rental service center, gas stations, offices, personal service businesses, places of assembly and banquet halls, places of worship, public use, recreational facilities, restaurants, fast food, full service, takeout, retail, building and construction supply, and service commercial and uses and buildings accessory thereto. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning from highway commercial to HC 57, which is a special provision of the zone, which will recognize the lot frontage and front yard requirements of the zoning bylaw to allow the property to be severed under the consent application previously mentioned. No physical land use changes are proposed through this application. At this time, Your Worship, I would like to invite the applicant to comment, please.
Mr. Rivers?
Good evening again. This is a fairly technical zoning bylaw amendment brought forward to deal with the unique nature of the property itself. Phase 1, as you know, has gone ahead and it has been developed already and is operating. To enable that phase of the development, it was necessary to put in, of course, the stormwater management pond. So with the requirements for setbacks for entrances from along Main Street West and the engineering requirement for the location of the stormwater management pond, phase 2 is essentially left without frontage on a public road. The purpose of frontage on a public road is obviously in order to be able to servicing, access, stormwater management, sewage, drinking water, electricity, natural gas, those things. In this case, the proposal really is to split the development as was approved in the site plan, and to ensure that all of the requirements or the aspects of frontage are dealt with in terms of an easement, a blanket easement over the entire property, in favor of both Part 3 and Part 1 to allow access, shared parking, shared use of the stormwater management facility, those things. So it's really a technical type of amendment to enable the second phase to move ahead under separate ownership and for financing purposes. Those of you who, council members who were in attendance for the consent public meeting know that there are some issues between the adjacent property owners. In my opinion, they are not planning related issues, but I'm sure I have some assurances from my client, Mr. Malik, that they will look to resolve those issues as favorably as possible for everybody. Other than that, I have really nothing else to say, and I'd be looking forward to answer questions again.
Okay, David?
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Mayor, are there any questions of clarification for myself or the applicant?
Again, councilors, just raise your hand, leave it raised. I'm going to go through my list here. Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to either David or Steve, can you just, on the copies that we received, it's very difficult to see any dimensions. I was just wondering if you could tell me if there's enough room between the north end of the building and any property there for emergency vehicles to get around and through in the back of that strip mall building.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells. This part of the development was already approved in 2018 through the site plan approval. So if you can see on my screen here, that's the distance there is five meters on the northwest corner of the building there. That's what you're referring to there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I have Councilor Bagu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I may be mistaken with Mr. Schultz, maybe it was taken care of already, but there was some concern along the residence on the north end of that when the construction starts, the vibration, the jackhammering, and any damage to their properties. But I just want to hear from you that's all taken care of.
Mr. Rivers, with regards to the phase 2 construction, has the majority of servicing been done? And I mean, obviously we all knew what went on during the first phase construction. But all the water, sewer, and services have already been put in the ground?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So there shouldn't be any destruction to any properties to the north, the residents on, I can't remember which drive that is, on part 3.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from my knowledge, I believe the servicing has been put in place for both phase 1 and phase 2 so far. Stephen, I don't know if you can hear us. If you can confirm that, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, that's my understanding that the servicing is all in place. Storm, water, sewer, gas, all of those utilities are in place. Certainly, the construction of the most northerly building may have some impact on the properties to the north, but no more than construction of a house in a location like that would have. These would be slab on grade, so there'd be no excavation for basements, and again, pretty straightforward with construction process.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Slab on grade. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think that's Councilor Danch.
Because I was muted, you didn't hear my bells ringing. That's the problem. And I just want, and I was listening in, and the majority of my questions have been answered. But to Mr. Rivers, so slab on grade. I mean, those people over there, like the people down the end of Clarence Street with the whole rams and stuff like that, going all day long. There was some concerns from the Merritt Parkway and whatnot. Couple basements that I couldn't get fixed for anybody. I just really want to echo the fact that we're not going to be going in there with a whole ram for the next 3-4 months. That all the facilities that are necessary for the project are already in place. And I think that's what some of the people might want to hear around there.
Mr. Rivers?
Certainly, to you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, excuse me, that's my understanding. The whole ramming is necessary to put the servicing in, water, sewer, gas lines, those sorts of things. And you know, there may be some to extend those utilities to the building to the north, but there certainly won't be a massive amount as there was down the end of Clarence Street. Certainly, if there are damages to those properties, they do have recourse, you know, to the courts if necessary to ensure that those things are fixed.
Counselor?
And that's all good. And the one person on Merritt Parkway, I got nowhere with, and the contractor at that time in the city just walked away and said that not my problem. And so I look at this guy on occasion, and all I can say to him is like, not our problem. I don't want to see this thing getting echoed and having more issues down the road. I mean, you're telling me that there won't be, or there's a minimal amount of like, I think for David in the background there, I think the people around there want to know. I mean, I know it's a tough place to develop. Port Colborne's a rock, but people need assurances with this stuff, and I just hope all that's in place before we you know, give these guys a permit to move along. Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions? Just keep your hand in the air. Okay, I don't see any. Okay, David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read my closing paragraphs. Actually, I'm going to put up my slide deck one more time just so people can see the emails to email and numbers to call. If a person or public body does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed by council, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne Council to the local planning appeal tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed by council, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there is reasonable grounds to do so. As mentioned in the previous meeting, but I'll mention it again, that anyone that's wishing to receive any notices of the passing of the bylaw is asked to contact either myself at planner@portcolborne.ca or Amber Lapointe at cityclerk@portcolborne.ca. To close, if you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of passing of a zoning bylaw amendment will be given notice. This concludes the public hearing under the Planning Act. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment and recommendation report will return to council at a later date. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. And I will adjourn this portion of our public hearings tonight, and we'll go right to the council meeting. I will call this council meeting to order. I don't think we need to do a roll call. The same members are here. I'll get right into my mayor's report, then we'll hear from Councillor Butters. Again, good evening and welcome to our virtual council meeting. Joining me in the council chambers this evening are the CAO, Scott Louie, our clerk, Amber Lapointe, and our deputy clerk, Charlotte Madden, and our member of our WeeStream team who is live streaming this meeting for us. Our city councilors and various city directors are each attending from home via Zoom. Based on the province of Ontario's response framework in dealing with COVID-19, Niagara remains in the orange, restrict stage as defined by this framework. We need to continue to work hard so no further restrictions are put in place as is evidenced in other areas of the province. Remember the precautions you have taken over the past 9 months, which continue to save lives. We emphasize the need for social distancing, hand washing, and face coverings where social distancing can't be maintained or where required by the region or province's face covering bylaws. We ask that you continue to support our local businesses through this Christmas season, and our retailers and restaurants and everybody else as much as you can within our municipality. This time I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the holiday drive-through toy drive held on Saturday, November the 28th. The Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services team and Port Cares have gathered all the donations, and they are sure to bring a smile to many families this holiday season. This was the best year they've seen since starting the toy drive 5 years ago. Over this past week, our firefighters have dealt with several structural fires within the city of Port Colborne. I'd like to extend our appreciation to our firefighters and those that provided assistance from the fire departments of Wainfleet, Welland, Niagara Falls, and Fort Erie for all their hard work during these tough times. Our thoughts go out to those who have been impacted by these fires, and we urge everyone to use caution and be fire smart in their homes and buildings. Prevention is the gift that keeps on giving this holiday season. Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services would like to remind residents to be fire safety smart, especially during this festive time. Keep decorations at least 3 feet from open flames and heat sources. Never leave cooking unattended. Never leave a space heater unattended, and turn it off if leaving the room or going to sleep. Water your Christmas trees daily and discard them when they are dry and begin dropping needles. Inspect all decorations to make sure they do not have any frayed or pinched wires. Install smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors on every level of your home. Be sure to test the alarms every month. And don't think it can't happen to you. Please be safe this holiday season. Over the last several months, I've received over 100 pictures with Christmas images drawn by the children of Port Colborne for use on this year's Mayor's Christmas card. I want to thank everyone who submitted a photo, or actually a drawn picture. For the front of the card, we selected the picture drawn by Madeline Golding, a grade 6 student at DeWitt Carter School. This can be seen right in the front here. And for the inside of the card, we selected 4 pictures. They were drawn by, which are at the top of the inside of the card, Ellie Sismar, a grade 6 student from St. John Bosco School, Natalie Walker, a grade 3 student from St. John Bosco School, Peyton Thasuska, a grade 3 student at DeWitt Carter School, and Kieran Roddy, a grade 7 student at Oakwood School. Again, fabulous drawings. We had to go through many of these and just pick what we felt best represented our municipality during this Christmas season. And we couldn't bring all the children into the council chambers this year. As everybody knows, usually lined up across the front are 4x8 pictures of their artwork, and those are normally put on our Santa Claus float that we have in the parade, Christmas parade. But as we all know, things have changed. So what we did is something a little bit different this year. We actually went to the front of City Hall, where we presented 3 of our winners with a smaller version of their artwork, plus a supply of Christmas cards and a beautifully plaqued Christmas card with their name on it. We went to St. John Bosco and presented one of our young students there, and we also went to one of the houses of one of our winners and presented him with his package there. And we do appreciate all the family members that were involved. We got some great shots, and at this time we have a short video to play for everyone. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our unusually way of doing our Christmas card release this year. We had well over 100 entries from schools across the city of Port Colborne, and this is the finished product. These are our 5 winners of our Christmas card contest this year. We had Madeline Golding, Ellie Sismar, Kieran Roddy, Natalie Walker, and Peyton Lasuska, ranging anywhere from grade 3 to grade 6 from our schools. And we really appreciate what all the kids did, and I'm sure they had a little bit of help from their teachers and their parents, but you know, we thank them, and we really wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And some people will be receiving these very shortly from the mayor's office. Thank you. This is Madeline Golding. She's grade 6 at DeWitt Carter Public School. My kids went to DeWitt Carter. Fantastic school. And Madeline is the front of our card this year. Great shot of the waterfront of Port Colborne and a nice ship's wheel, which is our symbol, which is all over the city of Port Colborne. So we thank Madeline for her artwork this year and such a great job, and we wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Good. Well, this is Ellie Sismar. She's in grade 6 at St. John Bosco School. Ellie did great picture of our Pokemon, so that's yours. And Ellie, we're going to give you a signed card from the mayor's office with all the artwork that we have and a number of cards to send to your family and friends for Christmas. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking my card.
Oh, no problem at all. You got that? Okay. Good job. Elbows? There we go. All right. So this morning we're at St. John Bosco School. We have one of our Christmas card winners, Natalie Walker, grade 3. And we're presenting Natalie with a poster of her Christmas card and a plaque which shows her picture right here. And she's got the bridge and a boat and Santa in there. And it says Christmas in Port Colborne. So Natalie, thank you very much for entering. You and all the kids that came in this year. We had well over 100 entrants. And we really appreciate what you did and some great artwork. So thank you. You're very welcome. So we have Peyton Thasuska here. Peyton's picture made the mayor's Christmas card this year. Peyton goes to DeWitt Carter School. We just want to congratulate her for the great artwork, specifically the ship's wheel, which is a big symbol of the city of Port Colborne. So very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your family, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So we're with Kieran Roddy. His photograph is right here on the mayor's Christmas card for 2020. Kieran's grade 7 at Oakwood School, great school in the city of Port Colborne. So Kieran, congratulations, and we really appreciate all the effort you put forward on a great picture.
Thank you.
And as I said earlier, he's got one more year. He's going into grade 8. You never know. He'll make the float next year, as soon as the parade comes back. Great, thank you. And thank you again to all the kids that put their Christmas cards in this year. And don't forget, we'll be back at it again next year. And as I said to Kieran, let's hope next year that we've got the parade in full force and we can show off the talents of our young students here on our city float within the Christmas parade. And our staff did a really good job in the video. Made me look thin. I would like to thank all homeowners and businesses for lighting up our city for Christmas this year. And I've got to say, driving around at night, the number of homes, most I've seen in a long time, that are lit up. I just think it's fantastic, and everybody's got into that spirit with such tough times we have right now. But I do congratulate everyone. And our businesses, if you go downtown or over onto the Humberston business area and look at what businesses have done over there with their front windows and lighting up some of their businesses. Again, fantastic. So we do appreciate that. Voting will take place on Facebook, and we encourage everyone to vote for their favorite property before December 19th. And the winners will be announced on social media next Monday. So get your votes in, everybody. This year, New Year's Eve will be a time to celebrate with family. Our traditional New Year's Eve celebration at the Valet Health and Wellness Center has been put on hold with plans to return next year to bring in 2022. We encourage you to start new traditions with your family, as well as stay together and apart. You expressed your gratitude for your library. Now the library would like to thank you. Swing by the library and pick up your surprise gift bag of gently used books during curbside hours from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday to Saturday. Each bag is labeled with a brief description of your surprise books. Please choose only one, available while quantities last. All surprise gift bags have been quarantined for 4 days and were packed by staff wearing gloves. The city has been working on developing a new website, which we will be launching tomorrow. I encourage you to check it out for all the news and information you are looking for. We know there may be some technical issues to work out, and ask for your patience as we work through these over the next few weeks. And in closing, we continue to work together and remain vigilant in fighting the COVID-19 virus. It was good news today, the first vaccines in the province of Ontario, they started those. So that is, there is light at the end of that tunnel coming to us, hopefully sooner than later. But our number one priority is the health and safety of our staff and you, our citizens of Port Colborne. So on behalf of myself and my family and all of City Council and their families, please have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Please stay safe and be kind. Thank you. Any question to the Mayor on his report, my report? Seeing none, we have Councillor Butters for the Regional Council report. Welcome, Councillor.
Hello, Mayor Steele and councillors. I'm really happy to be here. I have my festive hat on as well. Angie probably recognizes it from a few past parades, and I'm glad to see some of you have followed suit, and especially that elf. And I won't. Looking good there, Mr. Dance. So I'll be quick like a bunny here. We were pretty busy the last 2 weeks in meetings at the region between the 4 standing committees, the budget review committee, as well as a committee of the whole meeting. So nobody was slacking last week, that's for sure. Budget review committee, I'd say, just give you a couple of quick highlights. Under agencies, boards, and commissions, between Niagara Regional Housing and the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, they both came in at the 2% guidance for their budgets. The police came in at 4.3%. There will be, this week at the council meeting, there'll be a CAO recruitment committee formed. So looking forward to that one. And in terms of waste collection over the holidays, the only change will be on a Friday. All the rest of the days stay the same, but if your collection day is Friday, it will be delayed by a day. So on December 25th, which is a Friday, it will change to Saturday, December 26th, and Friday, January 1st will change to Saturday, January 2nd. The week that your garbage is picked up, and in Port Colborne, that would be January 4th to 8th. For waste, households may place 2 extra bags or cans out without needing to put a tag on them. And Christmas tree collection, January 11th to the 15th. On your regular garbage day, that's January 11th to 15th for Christmas tree collection for live trees. So make sure your tree is devoid of decorations and of course no artificial trees. And just want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a happy and a safe holiday coming forward. Some sad news out of Shirkston this week. One of our long-time members of the committee that looks after the Shirkston Community Center, Dave Diplock, passed away. I know that all of you that knew him share in our great sympathies to his family, Kathy, and the kids. A great loss to Shirkston. he was the one really, really special friend to so many of us. So with that, I'll close and wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and on behalf of myself and City Council, we wish you and Larry and your family a healthy Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you so
Questions
much.
to the Regional Counselor? Seeing none? See you on Thursday, Barb.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we have one additional addendum item.
Yes, there is one addendum item this evening. There's an addition of a bylaw. It will be bylaw number 6851-101-20, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Nyon Oil Inc. regarding fire safety and risk management.
Great, thank you. Confirmation of agenda. Can I have Councilors Bodnar and Councilors Bagu move that? Any question with regards to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, raise a hand. That's carried. Disclosures of interest. I have Councillor Beauregard has declared a conflict of interest on items 1, 3, and 4, as well as bylaws number 98, 99, and 101. Any further conflicts? Councillor Beauregard?
Thank you, Your Worship. Because of the addendum item 13.
That's the bylaw.
Is that okay?
We've
Then yes.
included it
No,
before that. Yep, we've got
Okay.
that here. Yep.
Good.
Okay. Any other conflicts of interest? Thank you. Adoption of minutes, the regular meeting of council 34-20 held on November the 23rd, 2020. Can I have Councillors Danch and Councillor Beauregard move those? Any question to those minutes? Seeing none, raise your hand for those in favor. That's carried. This evening, councillors, we have the following items. Some due to conflict, items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 11, 13, and 15. Just remember that the numbering had 2 items 13, so the second one obviously becomes item 14. Any further items to be pulled? Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're going to make one of the 13s a 14?
It would be the second one, which would be number 14, correct?
Okay, that's the one I wanted pulled, and because they were both 13s. That's the number 288
Yep, I've got it.
/20?
Yep, I've got you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Perfect. So does that mean the actual true 13? Do you still want to bring it? You don't need to bring that forward?
No, do
Okay.
not.
So I'll leave 13 off unless somebody else wants to bring it forward. If not, I don't see anybody. So we'll take 13 off the list, add 14. Did you want item 13, Councillor Wells? Or are you fine with just 14?
And just for clarification, we're taking the second 13, moving that to 14, and keeping the first 13 on.
Yeah, do you want to speak to the first 13?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to leave that on then. Okay. So Councillor Wells, and then I'll go. Okay. So we will have 13, 14, and then finally 15. Any further items? Not seeing any. Approval of items not requiring separate discussion. Councillors Demeray and Councillor Claylough to move that. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those are carried. Thank you. We have 2 delegations this evening, Council. We have Lisa Wegter, Program Manager, Christian Horizons Group, Port Colborne, regarding invoice received for false alarms at 408 Barrack Road. Request invoice to be waived. That is found on page 164. Just going to pull my copy out here. And we have Lisa online. Are you there, Lisa?
Hi, yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for giving me the time to speak tonight.
Thank you and welcome. Go ahead.
I'm a program manager for Christian Horizons at a residence in Port Colborne. We support adults who experience developmental disabilities. On November 26th, I was made aware that we received a invoice for $1,200 due to 2 nuisance alarms. These alarms went off for reasons that are still unknown. We do know that they were not due to any negligence of any Christian Horizon staff. In fact, the staff did an outstanding job of following the fire safety plan and getting everyone out of the home. The false alarm was a malfunction of the equipment. We do not know what that malfunction was or what caused it. We spent almost $500 on a technician coming to the home to figure it out. And we have also since replaced 2 of the interconnected smoke alarms. I'm requesting on behalf of Christian Horizons that the invoice be waived, as we are a nonprofit agency and we could better use those resources to upgrade and maintain our fire safety equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Questions to the presenter, councilors? Seeing none. Any clarification with the fire chief? Fire Chief Cartwright, any clarifications or anything to add?
Are you able to hear me, Your Worship?
Yes, we can.
Your Worship, excuse me. The property in question has had a number of false alarms. The first one occurred in August of 19. So far this year, up until today, we've had 5 false alarms. The most recent one this past week. Prior to the invoices being sent out, we'd had 2 false alarms this year. We billed for the next 2, and there'll be a bill sent for the last one, which just has occurred. We followed the procedures within the bylaw that we currently have that was reinforced by this council in 19. And quite frankly, we gave the property in the bylaw, we only have to give 1 chance. We actually gave them a total of 2 chances prior to issuing invoices. As was stated probably to the property owner, we don't have the ability to cancel an invoice. That is up to council. But the reality of the situation is it appears as though, given that we've had a most recent false alarm this past week, obviously the problem still is there.
Thank you. I have Councillors Beauregard and Bodner so far. Councillor Beauregard.
Thank you, Your Worship. To the fire chief, how many of our firefighters or volunteers attend at the property?
Chief.
Through Your Worship to council, when we respond to that particular property, as we would all remote alarms, it's a full complement. We would page out the full-time and the volunteers, a total of 4 trucks. As per the bylaw, I could have billed for all 4 trucks. We didn't. We only billed for the 1 vehicle that did attend. So we would have had our full-time staff plus all of our volunteers attend for all those calls.
Thank you. Councillor Beauregard.
That's all, thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to the chief. Chief, have we charged other people or businesses for false alarms in the past?
Chief.
Your Worship, if I could, to council, absolutely we have. As per the bylaw, we certainly have enforced the bylaw as best we can. Quite frankly, there's been a number of properties in the city that have been invoiced and have paid bills and or had it added to their taxes.
Councillor.
Thank you, that's fine.
Okay, any further questions to either the chief or the presenter? Councillor Clayle.
To you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. You're saying that you had a technician in and they've not been able to discover what's causing these alarms?
Lisa?
The invoice that we received, the 2 nuisance alarms in November, there was nothing found. He said it could have been something as simple as the humidity, or it could have been a spider walking across the smoke alarm.
Councillor Clayle?
I guess I'm just wondering if you've had 2 previously, then these last 2 and now another one again. There has to be a better way to, you can't carry on like this, obviously. Can you get a second opinion, or have you had a second opinion of what could be causing the issue?
Lisa?
So the most recent one we do know was due to a smoke alarm. The monitoring company was able to tell that from the code that they received. So that's why we have replaced some of the interconnected smoke alarms.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from council? Counselor Beauregard.
Through you to the presenter. So will this stop happening in the future? Do you expect?
Lisa?
Yeah, I would hope that we could use this money to better upgrade and put more new smoke alarms in.
Counselor?
That's all.
Counselor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Lisa. Lisa, I do appreciate that it is a difficult situation to be in, considering the work you do and the limited funds. But there's a cost to the city, and it sounds like the cost will continue to happen until changes are made to your fire alarm system. Do you have a plan in place to get the changes made to your fire alarm system? Besides the speaking to saving this money, is there another plan in place?
Lisa?
Yeah, the plan would be I've spoke to Vipon, which is our monitoring company, and they're giving me a quote to replace all the interconnected smoke alarms.
Okay, and will you be able to do that right away? What would be the time frame in getting that done?
I would hope that it would be done within the next few weeks.
Okay, and you would be able to do that without us having to make this fine go away.
Lisa?
Well, I would need to get approval from my area manager for that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions? Counselor Danch?
You know, these alarm systems are a bugger. I mean, they present problems that people aren't always responsible for, like, like a spider walking through. And I just wonder if the chief would be a good Santa and maybe give up the $100 administration fee and save the organization at least $100 on this. I mean, and I've said it before, I was a volunteer for years, and it's always a problem, and you're always concerned when you have to go to these places, but that's what we get paid to do, and the fire department gets paid to respond. So maybe the chief could at least give up the $100 administration fee and maybe appease everybody that's in the room. And I don't know. To you, Chief. Thank you.
Actually, Counselor, the chief has no authority to do that. It's actually us. So if you want to make that as a motion, I can take that.
Okay, I'd like to make an motion that the city gives up the $100 administration fee as a goodwill gesture, and that the Barrack Road residents upgrade their stuff, and hopefully we don't have these problems down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Can I get a seconder to that? Counselor Wells? Yes, Counselor Wells is seconding that. So we have a motion on the floor that the city will waive the $100 administration fee. Moved by Counselor Danch, seconded by Counselor Wells. Any questions to that or comments? Counselor Cleoth.
Is there any possibility that we could put some, speaking to this motion for the $100, I know in light of what they may be in for having to pay, is there any way that we could say that leave the fees standing until such a time as this new system is in place, and if it's done within a certain time frame, like Councillor Desmarais was saying, within a few weeks, is there any way we could do something that way so this money could be used to help put all of that in place for them? I'm just kind of trying to, like Councillor Danch, trying to find a way to help them, but at the same time can't afford to keep going out to these calls if it doesn't work, if the new system's not in place and not working well.
Well, you can
Any
certainly- you
thoughts
can-
on that?
You can certainly make an amendment to Councillor Danch's motion, but that's up to you.
Is there any other thought on that, or I guess it would be that, you know, if the new system wasn't in place within, say by the end of January, in place and working properly, then just leave the fines as they are and they would be payable? Can we do something like that?
You can certainly put provisions in there, but again, you'd have to make an amendment to the motion that's on the floor.
I will make an amendment to the motion saying that if they get their system in place by the end of January, and if it's proven to be working well and there's no more alarms, that we would forego these last fines. If the system is not up and running by the end of the month, then the full amount would be owing at that time.
So all we're talking about is $100 here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the full.
No,
So the
no.
amendment is just to the $100.
This is just to the $100.
No, then I'll leave that one the way it is.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that off. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please raise your hand. All in favor to waive the $100. Please waive your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? That's carried. Okay. Councillor Kalaleff, was there anything further you wanted to bring forward? Unmute yourself, please. There you go.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. So the $100 has now been
Waived.
waived. So is that the end of it, or can I?
No, you can make a further motion if you wish to.
I'd like to make a motion that if a new system can be up and running and proven to be working well by the end of January, that we would forgo the fines.
So
If it's not up and working, then the fines would be payable.
So we would waive all fines.
Only if the new system is in place by the end of January and working well. May I ask the chief, this is an interconnected, I was going to ask the chief regarding
Yeah,
the
can I
fire
get this-
alarms that
can I
they
get
do,
a-
but theirs isn't interconnected.
Yeah, can I get I gotta get a seconder to get this on the floor. A seconder for that motion. I do not see a seconder. Sorry, Counselor, there is no seconder for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Counselor Beauregard?
Through your worship to council, this is just one of what's going to be, I think, through a total of 3 invoices. Maybe from what I'm hearing, we can suspend the decision on this one and not require any payment whatsoever until all invoices have been issued, and then maybe make a collective decision on those invoices. So I'm just curious as to what council's opinions may be on that before I make a motion.
Sorry, Counselor, you gotta put a motion on the floor.
Okay. I don't think I can make a. Don't we have to make a decision on the motion that is before I can make a new motion?
There is no motion on the floor. We've passed that we're
Oh,
waiving.
it's true. Sorry, that's
Yeah,
correct.
so
Okay.
we've waived the $100 on the first bill, and we can, if you want to make a motion further to that, go right ahead.
Okay, I move that we, council, defer a decision on this item until all invoices have been issued.
Okay, so in essence, what you want is the chief to bring back a report in January with regards to all invoices for this location. Is what you're looking for?
That works too, yes.
Okay. Councilor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just would like some clarification on that, because my understanding is that we've decided on the item that's in front of us. So that decision has been made. So there's no deferring of a decision. But asking for a report to come back on the future billing, is that what we're asking for? Because
No.
this billing has been decided. That's what I'm concerned. They're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so far we've waived a $100 fee, the amendment fee, on what the subject is this evening from the letter from Ms.
Okay.
Wagner. Councillor Kalaloff was bringing forward to waive the bill in question. That didn't reach the floor. Councillor Beauregard is looking for direction to staff. We can probably take it as direction, Madam Clerk, to bring further information back in January.
Yes, if you give them clear direction on what they would need to bring forward. So the motion on the floor that was decided was for this $1,200 bill that is on the agenda. So the new invoice that is coming forward still could come back to council without a reconsideration. So if you wanted something done by staff with that invoice, you could decide that tonight or wait until a request came again.
Yes. So Councillor Demeray, I think what Councillor Beauregard is asking for is Chief really to bring forward all billings to our next meeting, just so that we have them all. But we did waive the $100 on this one.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
So if it's okay with council, you're not making a decision to waive anything, but that a full picture will be brought forward by the chief in the new year. Is that okay with everybody for that to come back? Just raise your hand if that's okay. Okay. All right. So the majority says okay. All right, I don't think I need a motion for that. That could be direction. Chief, can you do that in the new year?
Yes, so my understanding, if I could, Your Worship, is that the second invoice that hasn't been issued, but will be in the near future, won't be issued until such time as council makes a decision about whether we're going to bill or not going to bill for everything.
Councillor Beauregard, were you looking for that to come back in a whole package to us in the new year?
Yes, the reason for my motion is I suspect that the presenter will come back again and ask for the same request, so I'd rather it all just be heard altogether. So.
Okay, Chief, you got that?
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Okay. You want a motion on that? Okay, so my clerk is asking for a motion, moved by Councillor Beauregard. Can I get somebody to second that? Councillor Bagu. Questions to the motion to bring this back in the new year with a full picture of all the billings, and then a decision may or may not be made at that time. We'll invite Ms. Wagner back. Any questions on that? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is carried unanimously. Okay, so Lisa, this is going to come back. So far, council has waived the $100 mint fee. But the chief is going to bring back any and all billings to a meeting in the new year. We'll have the clerk's department reach out to you to have you back, and then council can make any decisions at that time. Is that fine?
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay, can I ask you one more favor?
Yeah.
Can you contact Nancy Giles in my office this week? And
yeah.
She'll have some information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving forward, okay? Great, thank you. Seeing no further questions to the presenter, any further questions or comments? Okay, again, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
I'll be right back, council.
Where are you going?
I'm just giving some direction to senior staff, just a second. Sorry, Councillor. I'm just trying to get staff in order here. Our next item is Grace Church, 895 Empire Road, Shirkston, and their request to use Shirkston Community Center. As everyone knows, a very unfortunate incident where we lost Grace Church to a fire last week. And again, we do, as I said in my mayor's comments, we thank our fire department and the others that helped us on that. It is a great loss to the municipality. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the congregation at Grace Church. I'm going to turn this over to our CAO. We had discussions on this, and I'll let him lead on this one. Thank you.
Through your worship to council, the request is pretty simple on its surface. It's for the congregation to use the facility which the city owns, which is diagonally across the road, for their services. I have talked it over with, so this request came into my office and I was able to get the clerk to put it on the council agenda. As part of processing the request, I spoke to building maintenance staff at the city. The building had been sort of winterized because we weren't using it during the pandemic as a community center, and the Shirkston group that runs the facility sort of on behalf of the city wasn't using it either. So we have, because the firefighters were using it during the firefighting operations as well as the next couple of days, we unwinterized it or got it ready to use. So that has already taken place. The facility is ready to be used. The community center, so that comes from maintenance staff. Parks and Rec staff, which are actually the, I guess, responsible department for the building, have been in touch with the Shirkston Community Center folks, and they don't have any plans to use it, and they don't object to the plan to use it, for the church to use it, if council approves that request. It is at a reduced capacity right now of about exactly 30% of its full capacity. That amounts to about 53 people. And like I said, the city, no city departments nor the Shirkston Community Center group offered any objection. So the request is before council for approval.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. And if I can have Councillor Wells and Councillor Bodner put this on the floor, that we allow Grace Church to use the Shirkston Community Center. Is that all right, councillors? Okay. Any questions? Councillor Demery, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say that I think that this is absolutely the right thing to do. That was all I was going to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beauregard.
Through your worship to CAO Louis, did you speak to the city solicitor for this item?
Through your worship to Councillor Beauregard, no, this was all internal staff discussions and discussion with those outside operating groups, no discussion with the city's law firm.
Okay, just wanted to clarify for my pecuniary interest.
Great. Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Any further questions or comments on this? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is the right thing to do, obviously. In discussions with Councillor Bagu, Sunday, I think it was, there was a question, and I didn't hear the CAO allude to it, although Harry and I had an email from Nicole today. But is there, because the Shirkston Community Center folks pay for hydro, water, everything like that, is that being picked up by the church, or how are we working that out?
Mr. CAO.
Through your worship to Councillor Bodner, that is a great question. We have had that discussion internally. So the way that this operation works, or the facility works, is that's not a city expense. The Shirkston Community Center operating group pays that out of a budget that the city provides, but they are sort of the in control of the utilities. And staff have advised me that there already has been arrangement made between the church and the community center to cover those expenses. It might be the case, in fact, they're still working out the particulars themselves, that there is some insurance coverage that will help with the expenses of continuing to operate. No different than if you have a car accident and you get a rental car. So it might be something that the church is able to recover or has in their budget because they would have had those expenses in their own facility. But staff's advice to me is that they've had those conversations with Ms. Diplock, and that an arrangement has been made between the church and the community center.
Councillor Bodner?
That's fine. Thank you.
Good. Any other councillors? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you, council. That's it for our delegations and presentations. On to councilors' items and staff responses. I'm going to start with staff responses, and I go right to the chief. Chief?
Your worship, have you got me?
We've got you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much for covering a lot of the fire safety messages I wanted to put out this evening. I do appreciate that. To go along with that, I'd like to offer my great thanks to the surrounding departments that assisted us during this tough time. This last week has not been a good week for us. Others have had issues in the past, but we certainly needed their assistance over this course of time. So we do appreciate that, as you've already said. Added to that, I'd like to say to the community as a whole, please be careful around Christmas. Obviously, it's a time of celebration, even though it's going to be more tightly controlled this year for safety's sake, but with regards to COVID. But always, it seems at Christmas time, we have a run of calls. As you may recall, certainly some 4 years ago, we had a significant event happen, actually 4 years ago today, that cost 4 lives in the city, and we certainly don't want to see that happen again. So from the firefighters in the city, we want to thank everybody for their public safety and their fire safety during this time of celebration at Christmas and so on. But we also want everybody in the community to be aware of the fact, look out for each other, assist everybody as you can. And from all of us to all of you, a Merry Christmas and safe. Please be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other staff members with any information for council or updates?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could.
Oh, Mr. Aquilina, go ahead.
Good evening to you and to all of council. Based on comments received from the public since the release of report number 2020-124 regarding proposed changes to the official plan and zoning bylaw for mineral aggregate policy and regulations, the report was pulled from tonight's agenda in order for those comments to be reviewed. My goal is to bring back a report to council following the same process I did last time, giving it advance to the public a week before for council's consideration. My goal, Mr. Mayor, is to have that report to council at the last meeting in January. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina, and I do thank council for their comments with regards to that report and specifically to our public out there who made comments, and it gives time for Mr. Aquilina and his staff to go through all those. So we thank council's indulgence for pulling that this evening. Ashley Grigg. Miss Gregg, you have a update for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. I wanted to provide an update with regard to the installation of the decorative lighting in the Main Street and the downtown areas. The lights were delivered to the city on last Friday, and they are currently being installed, and that process is to be completed before the end of this week.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Shapowski.
Through your worship, I had a request come in from Councilor Bagu earlier today regarding the sand accumulation at the Eagle Marsh Drain and the Steel Street outfalls. So I just wanted to provide a brief overview on those. The majority of the sand was brought in by a few of the significant storms we have experienced over the past couple of years. The storms have essentially changed the shoreline, causing us to react and change our operational duties. In the short term, we will continue to clear the outfalls while in discussion with the ministry to determine best paths forward. Our drainage superintendent is currently working towards completing an engineering report for the drain, which will include the outfall. She is currently expecting to have this completed in the spring of 2022, with construction to follow. Construction could begin very soon afterwards if there are no appeals, but if there are, construction could be delayed based on those. So just a brief overview of the plans that we're taking right now based on the issues that we're foreseeing at that Eagle Marsh Drain outfall.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shapowski. Any other staff members with updates? CIO, you don't have anything? Madam Clerk? Okay. All right, on to councillors' items. Councillor Beauregard, anything?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one. It's for Miss Director Griggs. This is in regards to the illegal dumping that has been happening along the Friendship Trail particularly along Durham Street. I have brought this to your attention before. It seems to be a recurring issue, and as discussed, it appears that since the region has changed its scheduling for garbage collection, that this has increased illegal dumping in the area. So what is it that staff plans on doing to prevent this from happening in the future?
Ms. Grigg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Beauregard. The councillor is quite correct. We have noticed an increase in illegal dumping since the change in the collection schedule from the Niagara region. Staff have been in contact with the region each time we find an instance of illegal dumping. They too have been doing inspections also of our waste receptacles throughout the city, particularly in parks and in the downtown core, where we've noticed an increase in household waste. But with regard to Councillor Beauregard's concern along the Friendship Trail, I have sought input from staff. And one of the suggestions is, and our recommendation at this point in time, is to pursue this from an enforcement perspective. Now, certainly I'd be, if the bylaw enforcement officer is on this, is participating in this meeting, I'll be interested in her comments. But from a staff perspective, we're interested in pursuing and investigating the installation of a portable camera in the location, along with signage, and to ramp up the enforcement activities that we are currently undergoing in order to respond to this. The benefit of a portable camera is that we can also take that camera and relocate it to another area, perhaps in the future if the illegal dumping happens in another area of the city. There has been a suggestion as well as possibly installing some fencing. We are in the process of getting some costing on that, but at this point in time, the enforcement is probably the most, will provide the most value for the municipality, and then potentially at the next budget deliberations of council, we can bring forward a request for council to consider the installation of some fencing.
Great, thanks, Ms. Grigg. Councillor Beauregard, you all set?
I just want to make one comment about that. Thank you, Ms. Griggs, for that. The portable camera is something that I think will be very helpful. And maybe we can speak with Valet to see if they have any cameras that could be of use in that area. That's all. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Walls.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment in regards to the camera or cameras, portable or fixed. Well, we have cameras at the end of Pleasant Beach Road, and they are virtually useless in regards to stopping people from dumping and discharging of garbage. The reason being is because there is no facial recognition, and if there's no means of identifying the actual individual committing the crime, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't enforce anything. So short of putting up dummy cameras into locations, I think that it would be a waste of our efforts and resources.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, I'll go to you, back to you, Councillor Walls, with any items.
Thank you, Your Worship. All my items have been addressed throughout the week by staff, and I'm satisfied, and I have nothing to bring forward.
Perfect, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Danch, any items?
Yeah, I got twofold here. I got one for Steve, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Corner of Charlotte and West, the light on the street there, it's been flashing for about 3 weeks. Possibly it's a internal problem that we can get looked into, or Steve, can you help me out there?
Mr. Szapowski?
Yep, through your worship to Councillor Danch, we'll submit a work order and have the issue corrected, and we'll go from there.
Super, appreciate that. So then, since we got Ashley on the screen still, the path through the park, lake at HH Knoll, I guess it was C&P Paving that did it. Awesome freaking job. Since my hockey career has been interrupted, I've gone to the walking side of things, and just want to let you know that it looks awesome and it's a nice pathway. Secondly, I see the street lights or the Christmas lights or the all year lights are up. I just wonder how many we have. I mean, the topic was around 40, and mixed reviews from the staff today. I just wondered what we do have coming our way.
Ms. Gregg, how many in total do we have?
My apologies, Mr. Mayor. Could you please repeat the question for me?
How many Christmas lights did we purchase, along with the BIAs, did we purchase and receive?
Yes, there was a total of 40.
Counselor?
Thanks, Ash. Because I'm out on Main Street, of course, every day of my life, and I was just talking to one of the staffers, and they weren't sure. They look fantastic. I do appreciate what the downtown BIA's done, and I'm sure we'll get a bill for our participation, but they certainly light up the street. Thanks you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. Thanks, staff. I'm going to Counselor Baggy next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, staff's taking care of everything I ever needed, and I'm just living the dream on Charlotte Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had a few inquiries on what we're doing with the short-term rentals as far as how we're proceeding ahead with that. And I'd just like to give a website here that'll go on our website. We assigned a staff person to look into licenses and permits. And while that doesn't is not exclusive to short-term rentals, there's a comment section for you to put comments in, obviously, and talking to the staff person, they would like to see some comments on the short-term rentals. So the website's portcolborne.ca/page/licenses the word and _permits. And I don't know where to find that on the website. I think it might be under business. But anyways, that is where you can go to comment on what you think or don't think should be done with the short-term rentals as far as either licensed or permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. You can also call City Hall with regards to that. Madam Clerk, because tomorrow we're going live with our new website, will it be under the licenses and permits section of that website?
Through the chair, I don't know exactly where it will be on the new website, but it will be easy to find, most likely under licenses. The link is being shared over social media, and I believe there will be an ad in the paper if not already. But if you want to access the survey, please just call City Hall if you're not on social media, and we'll make sure we get you a copy of the survey.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bodnar, you're good with that? Great, thank you. Councillor Clayliff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one or two items. First, I just want to give a quick report on the BIA meeting, the downtown BIA meeting that was held last week. Betty Kronk, who is the chair of that committee, she handed in her retirement from her position as chair, and we're currently recruiting to fill this position, and we're hoping to fill it at our meeting in January of next year. And I'd also like to thank Betty for her work and dedication in bringing the BIA to this point, and we wish her well in her retirement and whatever her next adventure is. Secondly, I'd also just like to thank staff for their continued hard work throughout this past year, and I want to wish everyone a safe and Merry Christmas. And I'd also like to thank especially the COVID-19 steering group. I just think they made a brilliant decision with asking our staff to take vacation or to work from home those first couple weeks in January. It's really a wonderful move. I think that they did a great job in doing that, and I think it will help us to keep at our status where we are right now. And I think that Colborne's doing a wonderful job. And I just want to thank everyone in the town and say Merry Christmas and thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demaray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Shapowski. Steve, I have a question about the sidewalk list. I just wanted to know if it has yet been compiled, or if that is you're still taking locations. And if it has been compiled, will council be sent that list so that we can see what's on it?
Mr. Shapowski?
Yeah, through you, your worship, to Councillor Desmarais. In terms of the maintenance contracts, we typically haven't shared that before, but we definitely can do that. Those are typically include smaller repairs, single sidewalk panels and items like that. But we can definitely share that. There is room, and we actually do prioritize those. So essentially it is a living document, and we base them off the severity of the issue. So it does exist, and it is based off of severity.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's what I had from staff, but I would like to echo some of Councillor Clay's comments and thank staff for all the work that has been done in this past year, in particular the EOC and the management teams for working so hard to keep everyone in Port Colborne safe. We've done an incredible job as compared to many other communities, and is much appreciated from this point. Also to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and the best of the new year. I know that it's going to be a different one this year, so we'll all be sharing our stories when we get back, I'm sure. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. And just have the record show that Councillor Bruno has joined us from his Airport Commission meeting. Welcome, Councillor Bruno, and you're last on the list for Councillor's items.
Thank you, Worship. Just some thank yous tonight, as well as some of the other councillors. Just to staff involved in the Barrack Road ditching back through to the Seaway property. If you've been down the end of Barrack Road, it's quite a different view through that bush there, and a 40-year ditch that's been reopened. So thanks to everybody at Ops and drainage people. Secondly, a thank you to IT for a seamless turn on of the Outlook email program. Never seen a clearer, easier switch over explanation, et cetera, done by Belinda and staff. And finally, on the website rollout and the session that we had Friday, to Amber, Bill, and everyone else involved with, will truly do us. I'm sure there'll be some bugs at the beginning, but those out there, check the website tomorrow. I think you'll be amazed at the change. And finally, just to everyone, staff, council, citizens of Port Colborne, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor Bruno. So we are now on to item number 10, consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Item 1 is being brought forward for Councillor Beauregard's conflict. Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report number 2020-157. Subject Meadow Heights Subdivision Agreement Amendment, Phase 2, Stage 1. I have Councillors Danch and Councillors Demarais to move that. Are there any questions on that one? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that is noting the conflict. That is carried. Item number 2 is Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report number 2020-183. Subject Community Improvement Plan Grant Policy. I have Councillor Wells and Councillor Danch moving that. I'll go to Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question through you to Director Bowles. And the question is are there any policies or approvals that are in place for making these types of approvals and limiting the cumulative amount of these approvals? I just want to know if there's anything there that backstops some of the individual decisions regarding the approval amounts.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Mr. Bowles isn't with us this evening because he didn't have any reports on this, but that should go to Mr. Aquilina because it is a planning issue. So I'm going to go to Mr. Aquilina on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Wells. Right now, we have the community improvement plan policies that deal with the incentive programs that have all been reviewed and approved by council, and those are what we follow when we deal with any sort of application. So there's been no other requests in the history of the CIPs since 2010 that have been brought forward to council for reconsideration. This is the first one ever received.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Aquilina. Dan, when we talk about reconsideration, I know this was this brought forward because it was above the internal dollar ceiling? And secondly, I remember back in the day, we used to have a budget each year for those facade improvements. I'm not sure if that is still in the budget because I hadn't seen any up until this one. Or was that because they were in your authority below the $10,000 threshold?
Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Bruno. Right now, the policy under this incentive program has the maximum amount of $15,000. So the request was to bump that up for this application only to $20,000.
Councillor?
Thank you. But is this ongoing program fully funded each year? And perhaps if it is, could you let me know what that number is?
Mr. Aquilina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. Yes, we have budget monies to do this work. Right now, the budget sits at approximately $72,000. Don't quote me on the actual figure. I've seen information from Mr. Boyles, but it would be better served that he responds to what the actual budget is. But there are monies right now that we have in place to fund the program.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilino. Actually, we've been able to get a hold of Mr. Bowles. He's on the line, so I'll have him answer that question. Then I'll go back to Councillor Wells in case he has a specific answer. Mr. Bowles?
Through you, the mayor, to council. The budget is $69,000 that's been set aside. And just for clarity and just to reiterate what the director Aguilina has said, I think this came to council because the policy as put forward says $10,000 is the normal amount of the grant. And then there are two stipulations, each for $5,000 that can move the dollar figure to 20 at the discretion of council. So that I believe is the reason why that has come to this council.
Okay, Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Either to Mr. Bowles or Mr. Aquilina, has this program, is it separated between the downtown and Humberston End, North End? And secondly, has it been oversubscribed? Because I know in the past it had been hugely oversubscribed, and I was just wondering if you could give us an update on what it's been the last couple years, applications versus dollar amount available.
Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Bruno. This program is very successful, and it actually applies to all of our community improvement plans. Main Street, downtown, East Village, you name it, it applies. And yes, every year, except I'm going to say for this past year or two, we've actually have monies that are remaining. In the past, we were always tapped out of money, and we let people know you're going to have to wait. So we've had good success on this individual program. I would say out of all the programs, it's been the most successful And is this a program that you actually see physically those improvements being made?
Okay, Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Demery, just before I go to you, I'm going to go back to Councillor Wells because we do have Mr. Bowles on the line. Councillor, do you have a question to Mr. Bowles?
Thank you, Your Worship. The question was, Brian, if there were any policies in place that identify the approval process or the amounts on approvals. I know the limit is 10 and plus 2 5s on top of that to get to 20, but it can be whether it's one application for one applicant, whether that applicant can reapply for another one. Just was curious if there were any policies in place that sort of gave priorities to the applicants and to ensuring that they were fairly distributed.
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to council, I might have to defer to Councillor Aguilina on that. The reality is, and you'll note in the report, that after reviewing this particular instance with my fellow director, the report does highlight that I do believe that the CIPs and the city would be well served to actually do a review of its policies and practices around CIPs. They are about 10 years old, and I think CIP programs normally need to be looked at or should be looked at every 5 or slightly more than that years. So I'll defer to Councillor Aguilina to fill in if there is any additional policies about reapplying multiple applications. But I do recommend to council that staff bring back a report in the new year that outlines a plan to review our CIPs in totality.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Aquilina, can you just, I know you gave Councillor Wells one answer earlier, but with regards to multiple applications on a property, can you give us some insight on that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have in our policies that actually explain that per calendar year, there is a maximum amount that you can actually apply for, and only once in that calendar year. So the maximum amount presently right now is at $10,000 matching grant, unless in instances that council wants to give more monies available. So although those policies are right in those documents for each individual program, those programs are all available online on our website. We provide that to the applicant as well, making them aware of what the actual program guidelines are.
Okay, Councillor Wells?
That answered the question. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have no issue with this, with letting this go forward. My point was to actually what Mr. Bowles had to say. I was going to ask for staff to bring forward a report reviewing the entire incentive package and how it's doled out. I've always taken issue with the fact that the residential component wasn't broken out in this, because the residences, and it was tailored to the East Village in the facade improvement in particular, the residences always had a difficult time being able to get to the point where they made this application, and by the time they did, the money was normally gone. So it was challenging for a long time there, and I think for the most part they've mostly given up on it. But I do believe that there's a place for it, and I think we should kind of reinvigorate that by taking a good look at how this is laid out and the way that we give this money out. So yeah, that's really the point I was making. But I have no issue with moving forward with the request in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? Seeing none, please raise your hand. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. So with regards to the comments brought up by Councillor Demery and Director Bowles, I think I can take it as consensus that we will look forward to staff bringing that back to council to move forward with a review of our CIP programs. Is that a good consensus, council? Give me a nod. I think it is. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Bowles and Mr. Aquilina, I think you've got that information. we can look forward to something in the new year then? I hope. Mr. Bowles?
Yes, through the mayor to council, I think the plan will be, and the director Aguilina, the manager of strategic initiatives, and myself have discussed, we would bring back a report to outline how we would do it. We would most likely have to bring in a subject matter expert to run us through a series of public consultations to do a full review. So we will bring back a report that talks about how we'll do that and how we'll engage council on that process in the beginning of the new year.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Item number 3, planning, and I bring this forward again for Councillor Beauregard's conflict. Planning and Development Department Planning Division Report number 2020-184. Subject, recommendation report for the removal of holding symbol Nyan Oil Inc. I've got Councillor Califf and Councillor Wells moving that. Is there any questions on that one? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Item number 4, several councillors asked to bring this up, but also we have Councillor Beauregard's conflict. Chief Administrative Officer, Project Management Office, report number 2020-188, subject affordable housing project and partnership with Port Cares. I'll have Councillors Bodner and Councillor Demeray bring that up, and I'm going to go through my list here. I'm going to start with Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a question, and I guess the question would, I don't know who would answer it, but the question is, this is a partnership with Port Cares. Are there clauses or what happened in the event that Port Cares does not exist anymore? And, hopefully that never happens, but what would happen with this partnership and the assets of that partnership? Particularly the land which we are basically donating to Port Cares.
Great, thank you, Councillor.
I'm not sure who would answer that.
Yep, we'll have Mr. Long take that one on.
Good evening, Council. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The plan is to create a memorandum of understanding between the city and Port Cares that would outline sort of expectations, timelines, next steps in the planning and development process. It's also our intention and the preference of Port Cares to establish a due diligence period that would provide basically sort of a long runway on which they can complete studies, complete design work, secure financing, secure grants without taking possession of the property. If in the event there's problems with the property, the piece of land itself, or if they have problems securing funding for the project, then they would have sort of an off-ramp to exit this project and carry on. So I think it'll be structured to our benefit, but also to their benefit as well, to help manage any potential downside risk.
So, Mr. Long, with regards to Councillor Wells, if in the future, 10 years down the road, Port Cares did cease to exist, will you be working on a clause in that agreement that it would either come back to the city or however that would be worded? But I know with the region we just went through where a affordable housing operator was going to cease to exist, and it was turned over to Niagara Housing. So obviously we will be looking at the agreement, and that would be put in there. Can I say that would be correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship. That's exactly where I was going.
Good, thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Worship. I'm full of this part of the Parks Master Plan about aggregating parks, particularly when they're near each other, is near and dear to my heart, and I think the right decision to make, both short and long term. My concern is twofold. One, to Mr. Long on this report. It speaks of the issue of selling the park for $1. I can support that. Over to Port Cares. There's DC charges. I'd be interested in hearing municipalities propose on that, but I'm open to that. What I want to know is the other soft costs. So survey, legals, etc. The two that I previously mentioned are, we already own the property, so it costs us, we get $1. Secondly is if there's DC charges, if there's a waiver, they're money we didn't have and they're waived. On the soft cost is true cost to the municipality. And I was wondering if we had taken a position yet as staff as to whether those would still be a requirement to be paid by the applicant.
Mr. Long?
Through you, Your Worship, certainly the items that Councillor Bruno mentions are items that I think could be and should be discussed by Council, and certainly the more direction that Council provides us with respect to who would be responsible for those would be very helpful. Right now, the property belongs to the City of Port Colborne. So we're looking to move forward with survey work, a rezoning. Certainly, the cost and responsibility of these items would be certainly at the discretion of Council.
Councillor Bruno?
I'm just wondering if you could bring us back a list of those costs so that we could make an informed decision surrounding that.
Mr. Long?
Through you, Your Worship, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one other question through you, possibly to Ashley. Being committed to the parks plan, whether the Port Cares application goes through or not, I would like to see that redevelopment of Lockview Park. And so is there any plans to begin that process in the sense of moving the playground equipment? What I don't want to do is sit around and wait potentially for 1.5 years, 2 years, when it's in the parks master plan to do this aggregation of parks into a better park. Particularly this one lends itself to being, you know, pretty, well, can't be much closer than Chestnut Park is to Lockview Park. And so I would like to see that done well prior to, so either that people aren't waiting if there's a transition, or if the Port Cares project were to fall through, that those are then surplus serviced lots that can get built on and generate some tax dollars for the city and provide additional housing in infill lots. So I don't know, Ashley, if you already have a plan for that, because I think this train has left the station. It's just a matter of who's getting on.
Ms. Gregg?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Councillor Bruno. Appreciate the comments. Certainly staff will be working closely with Gary in terms of keeping up to date as this project moves forward. At this point in time, we don't, it is identified in the Parks and Recreation plan. We do not have immediate plans at this point in time to move forward on it, but as I said, we will certainly work closely with Mr. Long on this project and keep up to date, as well as make sure the council is informed.
Councillor Bruno?
Just one last question, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if it's you or the CAO. By virtue of the report tonight, I think we're making a decision, and we have a Parks and Recreation plan that states that that these parks will be aggregated. So I'm wondering what is the holdup, particularly I see in the report that it says that the Parks Department will take on the moving of that equipment. I'm not without sympathy if there are some costs in addition to that. But what, and perhaps through you to Ashley, what would that take to put that on the docket? So as I said, if the Port Cares plan doesn't go through for some reason, it seems to me we're going ahead with the recommendation in the Parks and Recreation plan. And I surely hope the Port Cares can get going, but is there any reason? Is there a budgetary reason? Is there a time reason? Can we get a feedback as to when it could start?
I'm going to go to Mr. Louie on this one.
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Bruno, and I'll let the director speak to the operational components. I think staff's vision here, so the Parks and Recreation Master Plan absolutely does identify proceeding this way in principle. I think we need, I think our vision, at least speaking for strategic initiatives and myself, not for parks, our vision was sort of a 1-2 punch, that as the decision was made to take Chestnut out of service, we would move into an increased level of service at Lockview. So whether that means the basketball court is rebuilt or built anew in the new location, playground equipment, and then any other park amenities that were coming forward. So I think it's a function of first one, then the next. And I think I'll let Director Gregg speak to the rest of the question. But I think some of the, and I think you'll hear this for months, if not years to come, some of the complicating factors were COVID and the fact that our focus was changed from sort of the planning function to the reaction function. I think budget, there is money in reserves, there's grant money out there, there is a lot of resources that we can go to for that actual improved infrastructure, but I think we're just not there yet at the design phase. So the councillor's point is well made. The advice will be taken by staff that we need to get down to sort of the design stage of what Lockview will look like in the renewed post-closing of Chestnut era. And maybe we can get about that work as soon as we sort of complete this first, the first phase of these 2 phases.
Ms. Gregg, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add. The CAO responded very well, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bruno?
Last question. I understand that the current desire is the 1-2 punch, but if I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Louie, it is the ultimate plan for Lockview, and if there's other amenities, I don't think it has to be. I think I think moving the park could proceed on its own if we did not have this application. And so I would really like to see it get going, because the concern that I have is that we will get to a position where they want to move in and to get out. And at the end of the day, if we're about redeployment of parks, then we should be moving forward with this. And if Port Cares takes 6 months, great. If it takes 1.5 years, great. But at the end of the day, it's laid out as not being mutually exclusive, but it can. And so I'm just wondering if you could perhaps at least then give us an update on where that goes in terms of the design then of Lockview Park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
CAO?
So through your worship to Councillor Bruno, a part of your comments were lost in sort of the digital divide there. I'm not sure what your signal strength is like, but I think I got the gist of it. I guess in terms of an update of where we are, you've really put me on the spot, and I think the fact is we're at really the infancy steps of some kind of a plan for that park as well as the others that's based on the Parks and Rec Master Plan. But I think that, I can commit to bringing something back to council in the first quarter of the new year in terms of a process that we can follow probably a public process that will include some neighborhood input on what that new park looks like. Today we have an overgrown baseball field. We have the remnants of what was the community garden, where we grew some plants and vegetables for the community. I think the question is, do we want those amenities to stay? Do we want to look at water features? Do we want to look at restrooms? That basketball court, as you've referenced in the past, is coming out of Chestnut. Do we want to put something like that back in? So if you'll give me the first 90 days of the new year, I can at least bring a roadmap forward that will lay out the process, if not more. And by more, I mean some staff recommendations on what amenities or features should be included in the revamped Lockview.
That would be great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Louis.
Thank you, Councillor Bruno, and I think Mr. Louis hit the nail on the head. In fact, that this is part of our master plan for our parks. This really can be the first one out of the gate and really work lockstep with the project that we're speaking of tonight. So, and as Councillor Desmarais knows, we did talk about the neighborhood input in this, and that it is important that as we move current equipment over there, but for a master plan for just that specific park, to have that moving along at the same time, I think bodes well, and I'm glad you asked that question. So I'm going to go on to Councillor Claylough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to probably Mr. Louis. I just wondered if this building is going to be totally low income or assisted housing. Will there be any market value rentals in this building?
That should go to Mr. Long. Yeah, that's going to go to Mr. Long.
That's fine.
Yeah, Mr. Long.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Your Worship. In our sort of preliminary conversations with Port Care's executive director and their consultant working on the project, it's our understanding that all of the units will be affordable by definition, and therefore there will not be any market rent units.
So it will be all affordable housing. Can I ask you, in that case, I'm thinking of Port Colborne residents and the need for affordable housing. Do we have any guarantee of a percentage that will be able to be rented to Port Colborne residents, or will there be any, will we be able to decide how many, that they're all Port Colborne people, or if Ontario Housing is involved, will we be receiving residents from outside of here in Ontario, other places? Will Port Colborne residents, I guess, take preference is what I'm looking at.
Can I go to Councillor Desmarais? She sits on behalf of council on the board. She may have some insight on this. And if
Perfect.
She doesn't have the total answer, I'm sure she can get it for you. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Claylough, thank you for those questions. They're really a very important ones. The plan is for this not to be affordable housing, but to be social housing. So this is the gear to income type of housing that is for the most needy. It should, be able to take care of the base of our housing problem here in Port Colborne. And it is geared at Port Colborne residents. We have a very long list that needs to be filled, and the idea is to fill that list first. So it starts making a difference in our housing picture here. That's the idea for it. Things can change going along, but CMHC is on board and they're supporting this idea. The region is supporting it. It's looking like that it will likely happen that way. But, we never know until the very end, but that is the plan. So just if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Claylough?
Thank you. Let's see. Well, like I said, my big one was regarding Port Colborne residents because, I really, is there any way that we can, well, it sounds like you're already doing it, Councillor Desmarais, as far as the need for the Port Colborne residents. So that was my biggest concern. Yeah. Will there be transitional housing here, or when you're saying the most needy, are we looking at some of the people that we have that are in great need of, but not wanting sometimes to be? Will this be used as transitional till they can get them to where they need to be? Or is it strictly rental apartments?
Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, through you. No, I do not believe transitional housing will be a component of this particular build, but it will free up some space to allow for more transitional housing. There is already transitional housing in Port Colborne, but this development that's proposed tonight is the one that actually will serve the greatest need we have. It will address our largest core housing need. So that's why it was designed in this particular manner. But yeah, traditional housing, yes, is needed without a doubt, but not to the same amount, to the same level as the development that we're talking about.
I actually wondered if what you said was going to happen, it would free up other places for transitional housing. Okay.
It will mix up a lot of our housing need so that it allows a lot more movement in the sector. And just to a quick point about people from Port Colborne being in here, there is a list. They will be served first without a doubt, but you cannot limit housing to people only from a geographical area. That's actually illegal. So if someone were to come in and they would qualify, you can't say no. But to get somebody to qualify on that list would be very difficult because they go to the bottom of the list. And there's less units being built than the need seat is on the list. So we should
So
be
it would be according to the list, not according to. Okay.
Well, it's according to need, yeah, and that's what the list is already built.
Okay, Councillor
Thank you.
Claylough.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a quick comment on the park. Part of the recommendation here is that there is a plan, a revitalization plan built for that park, and that be brought forward. And that I think that addressing the people who are likely going to be living in the area, along with the people who already live there now, will give us a better idea as to what should be in that park. So I think that the recommendation is really well written and it makes good sense to me, and I'm happy to be supporting it tonight. That's everything.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Councillor Claylough.
Can I just ask you one further question? And that is this an unusual partnership? Has the city ever done this type of a partnership before with not particularly Port Cares, but with another charity as such, or any other communities that work? Yeah, I'm just looking at the fact that of the city entering into this, and I'm thinking there must be some kinds of contractual pieces that are going to have to come into play for a partnership to occur. Do we have any other areas that have done it that we can look at?
Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Yes, many cities have done this, and some other municipalities in Niagara have done this. We have not. This will be a first for Port Colborne, and it's a solid, good thing to be doing. It's not the kind of partnership that you may be thinking of as a partnership. It's not like a 50-50 split or something like this. It is various agencies coming together to create this. And when it's all created and it is then built and done, it becomes an entity that is run by and dealt with through Port Cares, through a separate arm of Port Cares. Their legal division is working on a way to safeguard this project so that no matter what happens to Port Cares in the future, this project has life. That's the idea. So it's being done that way. As I believe Welland is just finishing one. St. Catharines has certainly done one, and they're able to do that so that it works out so the project is safeguarded as well as the servicing agency. So,
thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Item 5, Department of Chief Administrative Officer, report number 2020-191, subject COVID-19, update number 8. I have Councillor Bagu and Councillors Beauregard moving that. Councillor Beauregard's back. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My computer's almost turned off. I haven't looked at them. Just a question for I don't know if bylaws online or the CEO can answer this, but what you're asking for is for like an aggressive enforcement by our bylaw for the COVID infractions. I'm just wondering, has the city received any complaints already? Has the city given out any fines already, or I'm just trying to get a figure on what's happening already in the municipality.
Yep, I'm gonna go to the CAO since it's his report. Mr. Louis.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Bagu, those are good questions, and the answers are yes and no. We have received complaints. We've been receiving them since the very start of the outbreak. Sometimes they're frivolous. Sometimes there's something that's beyond our jurisdiction. Sometimes there's confusion about the rules. For example, a business, why is this business open, or this person's allowing, shoppers inside, and so on. And we get out there and we investigate them, and we find, or we know that they're an essential business at the time and they were allowed to be open, or that the behavior that was being reported isn't truly happening. And sometimes there were mistakes that were being made, and bylaw in those cases would provide the information and try to educate the owners of the stores, or if it was a household gathering, educate the people at the household, or if they were in a city facility, a park or something that they weren't supposed to be in, provide that information about what the rules were. And so, no, we didn't lay any charges. Up to date, no charges have been laid. And that's not very much different than the other municipalities in Niagara. I've been talking to some of my colleagues, and I know that there isn't an appetite to lay a lot of charges and be very aggressive. Or I should say, there hasn't been up until now. I think now there is more of an appetite. I think there is a feeling among municipal councillors, and I'm externally to Port Colborne, at the region, at cities and towns in Niagara and beyond Niagara, a feeling that enough is enough. The education has been there. If you don't know the rules, you're living under a rock, or you've been living under a rock. I know recently there were, I think the word was dozens in an article I read today of charges in Mississauga for household gatherings. We know other jurisdictions have been more aggressive with charging. And so what we're looking for here in this report, and I see that you have sort of gotten to the meat of the issue, which is, do we want sort of, and I'll use a term, a loose way of talking, do we want bylaw off the leash? Do we want bylaw to do more than just educate? And if that's a desire of council, I think bylaw would like to hear that from council, because at the end of the day, you might have a complaint come back to council that says, we were just having a good time, why were we charged by your staff? So from the top level of the organization, and we're talking about continued infractions, so some kind of a database that would say, these people, this business, this individual homeowner, what have you, has already had a warning, has already had a bylaw officer tell them what the rules are and try to inform them, and then has continued to exhibit the same behavior. And in cases like that, do we want, as a municipality, our bylaw officers to take that heavier hand as we head into, possibly from orange to red, and as we head into the holiday season where there's more of those gatherings? So that is the question that is before you. The short answer to your questions is yes, we have had a number of complaints, and we have all the way back to March, and no, we have never laid a single charge so far at the municipal level.
And just further to that, Councillor Bagu, excuse me, I think our municipality has done very well at this, and and I think the lack of complaints on large gatherings. And just today I received notification through my position with the Niagara Regional Police. A motel in Niagara Falls made a complaint on a trespassing. People wouldn't leave. The police arrived, and there was a hotel room with more than 30 people packed in having a big party. So there were charges laid in the city of Niagara Falls by the Niagara Regional Police because it was after the hours of the bylaw enforcement. So I think the CIO is quite right. The time is over. I think we all want to make sure everybody stays safe, specifically over the holidays, and that whether it's a house party or if it's a restaurant or establishment that just packs people in, that's not something, and I think council's let this be known throughout this whole COVID, that's not something we want to see, that the numbers in our area will go up. We don't want to go into the red. I mean, our businesses are suffering enough. We get into the red, it could put some people out of business, which is not good for the city of Port Colborne. It takes away services to our municipality and to our citizens, but we just want to make sure everybody stays safe. So I think the CAO is correct in that, you know, if this is going to be an ongoing issue at a house or an establishment, you know, enough is enough. Like, we all know what's going on. And as he said, I think I used a comment on the radio, if you don't know what's going on, you've been living on Mars, because the rules have been out there. Every business has a whole set of rules that most of them tape to their door or within their establishment. I think every homeowner knows that, you know, you can't be having 30, 40, 50, 100 people into your house to have some wingding going on and expect that we're not going to take action. Because I don't think the neighbors would appreciate it, and quite frankly, I don't appreciate it. You know, we're trying our best here. We know it's tough on everybody, but, you know, as much as I'd like to have a huge gathering, which I do every Christmas, I have a great big cocktail party at my house. That's been canceled. Those would be nice, but again, I think health is our number one issue, and I hopefully you support the CAO and his vision here. Again, we work as much as possible with our citizenry and our businesses, and as well with the Niagara Regional Police on these issues. You know, and I think our staff have taken some great strides here, and I think they can see the big picture, and that when they walk into a situation, they're able to walk away knowing that they've made the right decision. Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good explanation. I have no problem with the regular one giving a warning and then second time whatever doing it, unless something's really flagrant. Then you know, I trust the bylaw and the CAO to use the discretion, and I do see the Niagara Regional Police will be involved if they need to be, and Niagara Health also, the inspectors there. So that's all I got to say about it, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. CAO.
Good, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bodnar, do you have a question?
Just to pick up on something Councillor Bagu said, maybe he meant it, maybe he didn't, but we're not first given a warning and then enforcing this, right? We're just ramping up the enforcement. That's what I would like to see. So I'd just like to make sure that what we're voting on actually does the enforcement and leave it up to bylaw to bring down the hammer anytime they have to.
Mr. CAO?
Through your worship to Councillor Bodnar, almost forgot your name. Councillor Bodnar, I think one of the conversations we had internally was about severity and laying a charge in severe cases. The problem with severity, I think, is that it's a little bit subjective. So if we say we used a rule of an inside gathering of 20 to lay a charge, somebody might argue 21's not much higher than 19. Why are we going to let people with 19 gathered have a warning and 21 have a charge? I think all of our staff have good judgment. I think our bylaw officers have the ability to exercise good judgment. But we thought one of the most fair ways to do a stricter enforcement program is to have a sort of a first warning, a one strike and you're out. So the first strike is the warning, the second strike is you're out. So I guess that's two strikes and you're out. We're looking at keeping a database or maintaining records of who has had a warning, and then on a second incident, going to the same residence, the same business, the same involved parties, laying a charge. So a charge is a $700 fine under the provincial orders, and it can be issued to each person in the gathering, not just the homeowner. But like I said, we'll be careful around severity, but we will have our officers exercise good judgment when they're one-on-one in front of a homeowner or a group of people that shouldn't be gathered, a restaurant that's breaking some of the provincial rules or what have you. But that's the system that I would like to see put in place, and that our staff would like to see put in place, is one warning and then no real forgiveness beyond the first warning. So that warning, I want to make sure what we're calling it is education and information. It's us informing the involved people of what the rules are exactly, so that no one can say, hey, we didn't know what we were allowed to do and we weren't allowed to do.
Councillor Bodnar?
Yeah, I got mixed feelings on that, but I just don't want to see us given a free pass. Okay, have your big party because you're not going to get charged. You're just going to get a warning. And if you're only going to have one during Christmas, you're good to go. Not the way I'd like to see it go. I will go with the severity of it. But I don't want to give everybody a free pass just to have a big party and knowing that they're not going to get charged.
And Councillor, I'll agree with you 100%. I think what Mr. Louis is talking about is, if with some businesses, they have people lining up outside. If somebody complains that they're standing too close, yes, we all know we should be social distancing, but if our bylaw officers show up, again, do you start charging people standing in line, or you just kind of tell the people that are running the business and the people in line, hey guys, you got to social distance. The business should keep a better eye on that. But I agree with you. If it's a big shindig going on, I have no issues with our staff giving fines for that, because we know exactly what issues they're having in the GTA, and that is probably the #1 cause of spread of COVID, is with large gatherings like that. So, I mean, that's out there. So, Councillor Bodnar, or Mr. CAO?
So through your worship to Councillor Bodnar, and based on the mayor's comments, the recommendation that's before council actually references repeated violations of these orders. So maybe the best path forward is for an amendment to change that wording to repeated or severe violations of these orders, which would mean I could talk to the bylaw staff tomorrow and say, when you have that, rager party where the neighbors are complaining and everyone, there's so many cars in front of the curb and everyone knows that you have grossly exceeded the province's rules, even though it's not a repeated violation, it's a severe violation. And then staff will have the direction from council to act accordingly when it comes to laying charges.
Councillor Bodnar?
I'd be happy to make that motion to change the wording and leave it to staff's discretion when they get to an incident.
Can I take that as a friendly amendment, Madam Clerk? Or do you want me to do this as I'll do it as an amendment? Okay, so I'm going to take that as an amendment. Can I get a seconder to that? Councillor Bruno? Will you second that, Councillor Bruno?
Yes, Your Worship, I did have a question, but go ahead with somebody else if they were ahead of me.
No, will you second Councillor Bodner's amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Questions to the amendment? Councillor Bruno.
Although I'm seconded, I have the same hesitation that Councillor Bodnar has, and even with the explanation by CEO Louis, I think at the end of the day, we still define severe, big. It still leaves, to me, I mean, I would, oops. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
My battery's going low, but I'll plug in. I guess my real concern is that only the person that's there at 2 o'clock in the morning can make the best call. And I don't think, what is big? I mean, if it's, if it's 10 people over, is that big, or does it have to be 15? I personally, I put faith in the bylaw officer. I don't want to send them a mixed message. And I'm happy that they're out there seeing, they may be seeing the same people at a different party, and they're at this one. And that I don't know, but that the bylaw officer at 2 a.m. does. And so for me, I would just like to leave it to the discretion of the bylaw officer.
Okay. Further questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise their hand. It's carried. To the motion as amended, any further questions? To the motion as amended. Seeing none, please raise your hand. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Item number 7, Community and Economic Development Department Parks and Recreation Division Report number 2020-189, subject Canadian Experiences Fund Grant Update. Project number 2020-30, supply and installation of solar lighting at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park. I have Councillors Bruno moving that and seconder Councillor Bagu. I'm going to go to Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Real quick, just reading the report. If you take a drive down there at the park, I actually ended up in this case speaking to the contractor only because I know him. He's done work out at the airport and he's done a very good job, and at our marina. When you look at the size and breadth of that park, there is an issue that the contractor brought up that's, I think, perhaps Director Craig could sit in on that conversation. There's X amount of dollars to spend, which will get you X amount of solar-powered lights. Solar-powered lights can have a 2-directional light. It just means upping the battery. That may be a little bit more. It may result in, one less light. It may result in saying, you know what, if we put 3 3/4 of the way through the park, it will also illuminate the walkway and the parking stalls at the lake. I just want there to be some discretion in that price, because to me here is the real deal. When you walk through the park, there are some mid-park by the pavilion that still has accessibility to power. Where you don't have any power is down around the loop road and those parking stalls. You don't have to go all the way to the end there, but I can tell you from doing walks on there every few nights with my good friend, Mr. Lannon, it is dark down there. And I mean dark. And yet at 8 o'clock last night, we passed some people walking the walkway right in front of the shore of Lake Erie where those stalls are. So my concern is that some attention be paid to, and particularly because these are solar lights, to err on the side of using those towards the south end of the park, because you can use less solar lights mid-park because there already is a true electrical source there. So I'm pleased to support that. I would just like to see some discussion between Mr. Zub and Ashley and the contractor. And if that needs oomph on some batteries to get some well-deserved lighting at the ring road, I would hope that we would use it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Grigg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Bruno. The point is well taken. In fact, the general location even of the installation of the lights is still going to be subject to an on-site meeting with the contractor. So the items that Councillor Bruno has brought up certainly will be discussed, as well as the location, and all of that will be done in cooperation between Parks crew, our staff here in the community services area, as well as with the engineering and operations team.
Thank you.
Thank you. All set, Councillor. Any further questions on this? Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it's kind of funny because the one I hear is almost the opposite of what Councillor Bruno was talking about. A lot of people go out there in the evening to look at the lightning storms and to take photography and the stars and stuff like this with lights on the south end of that parking lot. It would probably destroy a lot of ambiance, I guess you call it. I don't know. But I had no problem with the lights somewhere in the park. I trust the Parks and Recs Director Greg and Steve Shpakowski. We have had problems in the past with shove ice coming up in there and going quite a ways, and some of that shove ice is 8 inches thick that's coming into that on shore, with the hope they don't wreck the lights. So I trust our staff to do the right thing, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Please raise your hand. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Item 11, City of Hamilton amending the AGCO licensing and application process for cannabis retail stores to consider radial separation from other cannabis locations. I have Councillor Wells moving that, seconded by Councillor Bodner. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, it's a comment. I think that radial separation is very important to take into consideration. This takes an accumulative effect if we do not do that type of consideration. And again, radial is basically a 360-degree separation distance between retail cannabis locations. And we need to really consider how concentrated these retail centers would be in our community and that impact of that that would have on a community or a local area of a community if there were several cannabis retail distributors in a very tight, close proximity to one another. So I would suggest that at this point in time with that we endorse or we support that and we endorse a radial separation for cannabis retailers in support of Hamilton's issues.
Okay, Councillor, I'm going to take that as an amendment. If Councillor Bodner will support the amendment to support the City of Hamilton's just escaped me. Sorry. Yeah, their resolution. We can do that, and then we can send that to the appropriate people that they have listed, as well as our local MPPs. So if I can take that as an amendment, Councillor Bodner, you're okay to second that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Questions on the amendment to support, not just receive? Anything? All those in favor of the amendment, please raise their hand. Thank you. That's any opposed? Okay, that's carried. Now moving to the motion as amended. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay, that's carried. I think Councillor Wells is frozen. I'll wait till Deputy Clerk.
Yeah, he always looks like that.
I don't know if he was watching the football game, Councillor Danch.
That would be me.
Yes. Is he frozen there? Yeah, we'll just give him a minute to. We'll just give him a minute to get back. Thank you. Welcome back, Councillor Wells. So Councillor Wells, I took your vote as in favor on the amended motion for item 11. I assumed you supported that, correct?
That's correct. I
It was your
apologize.
motion, so, okay, so that did carry. Okay, so on to item number 13, moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Bodner, Township of Howick, amendments to the tile drain loan program, resolution number 276/20. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. My experience with working with Alana and the people on the drains in this area is that there is a lot of people that are in a position, especially with the pandemic, that cannot afford or are having trouble to be able to come up with the funds to be part of a watershed. And I believe that this helps with some of those situations by allowing to increase or increase the loan amounts, reduce the interest rates. So I would like to put forward a motion for the city to endorse or support the Township of Hawick and send a letter of support to the Ontario Ministry of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs.
Okay. Councillor Bodner, will you second that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have an amendment on the floor to support this, not just receive. Any questions on the amendment from other councillors? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise their hand. That's carried. Now to the motion as amended that we do support this. Any questions? All in favor? Please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillor. On to item number 14, which is, although it says 13, it is item 14. I have moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Wells, Township of Howick regarding amending the Tile Drainage Installation Act, resolution number 288/20. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to see us not just receive this, but support the Township of Hawick in the Drain Installation Act. Although we haven't had a major problem with this because we actually don't know where some of that tile drainage is going, but in a nutshell, someone could change the drainage on their farm and actually send it, part of it at least, to another watershed. And we wouldn't know at all. And this requires the people that install the tile drainage to give the city a plan just saying where this water is going to go. So as simple as that. And I'd like to see us support it rather than just receive it for information.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take you as the mover of that, and Councillor Wells as the seconder, if he's okay with that.
That's fine with me.
Thank you, that we not only receive this, but we do support this. Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Now to the main motion as amended. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise their hand. That's carried. Thank you, Councillor. Item number 15. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Wells, Municipality of Southwest Middlesex, regarding drainage matters on Canadian National Railway lands. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This again is actually a problem for the city of Port Colborne when we deal with railroads while we're trying to do drainage improvements. And instead of just receiving for information, I would like us to support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wells, will you second the amendment?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions to the amendment of support? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise their hand. That's carried. Now to the main motion as amended. It not only be received but supported. Any questions? Counselor Clayle.
Sorry, I made a mistake there.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor, please raise their hand. And that's carried. Thank you, Council. That is the end of the items. We are on to notices of motion. I have, I believe, one notice of motion. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And while I'm making this motion, it's kind of a joint effort from the Michener Municipal Drain Court of Revision, which Councillor Wells sat on, Councillor Bagu sat on, and I sat on.
Okay.
So I'm providing notice of my intention to introduce a motion at the January 11th, 2021 council meeting with respect to the reconsideration of Engineer and Operations Department Engineering Division Report number 2020-146. The subject is Michener Municipal Drain Meeting to Consider.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. On to any other notices of motion? I apologize. Seeing none. There are no proclamations this evening. We have one set of minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. I'll have Councillors Bruno and Danch move this. The minutes of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum Board meeting of October the 20th, 2020. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Consideration of bylaws. We are going to do these in two blocks, Council. We are going to have bylaws number 98, 99, and 101 be brought forward by Councillor Desmarais and Kalaleff due to Councillor Beauregard's conflict. Madam Clerk, that's fine. Any questions on 98, 99, or 101? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. That's carried. Items number 100 and 102. I'll have Councillors Bruno and Danch move that. Any questions on bylaws 100 or 102? All those in favor, please raise their hand. That's carried. You can vote on that, Councillor Beauregard. Those two you're fine. Okay, thank you. And those are carried. So the bylaws are put through. Now to item number 14, Council in closed session. Motion to go into closed session, Councillors Bagu and Wells. That Council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. A, minutes of the closed session portion of the November 23rd, 2020 Council meeting. B, Planning and Development Department Report 2020-185 concerning an appeal of Committee of Adjustment, Decision A15-19-PC pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsections 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Item C, Chief Administrative Officer, Project Management Office, Report number 2020-190, concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsections 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, surplus lands. Any questions on that? All in favor, please raise their hand. That's carried unanimously. We will now move into closed session. So before we leave, I just want to, we will take a 10-minute break. Again, we wish, on behalf of Council and the Mayor's Office, we wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you back in 2021. Thank you.